That leads us right to this breaking news. Just now from Adam Schefter, ESPN sources, he says the Raiders have informed other teams that they would quote, consider trading wide receiver Davante Adams for a package that would include a second-round pick and additional compensation.
Easy.
Second-round pick, that seems like a no-brainer. All right, we're going to talk about this in just a second. But first, let's listen to Davante Adams. He was on the Up and Adams podcast recently, was asked about his future with the Raiders. Take a listen.
What I'm hearing is that here's a lot of people think you may never play another down as a Raider. What would you say to that?
All I can control is this talk we're having right here, and then after we're done with this, all I can control is the next thing that I'm on to.
All right, interesting. Graz, is it possible Adams gets moved before the November 5th trade deadline?
Absolutely, especially if there's motivation on his side, the team side, or both to actually do it. Second-round pick and other stuff is a fairly high price for a wide receiver that's going to turn 32 in December and is making almost $17 million this year. Teams don't like to part with draft picks that high. So he's a pure rental. He has 2 years left on his contract after this year, but his salaries in those years are over $35 million, non-guaranteed. He's not seeing that money. So this year he's making 16.89. If you trade for him now, you'd have to pay him around $14 million for the rest of the year and have that much cap space. That number will go down by about $968,000 each week. If you trade for him the week of the deadline, you probably end up having to pay him about $10 million for the rest of the year. So if that is the Raiders' price, then I think it's probably going to take a little while for the salary number to get to a point where teams are willing to part with something like that in order to bring him on.
Interesting. Okay, Graz, thanks for the news. Dan, you think this is a no-brainer? You think that's a good price for Davante Adams, a second-round pick, and maybe additional compensation?
If I'm Joe Douglas, I can't get off the phone.
He's the GM for the Jets.
I get this done now. I get this done. Jets, go get Odell Beckham. That's what this is. That's what I envision this is, of being a couple years ago when the Rams went and traded for OBJ. Go get your Odell Beckham and kind of take that next step. I remember when they got OBJ, I said, well, the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. And they did. Go get him. This is an easy decision for the New York Jets. If you watched that team play this past weekend against teams that could lock up and play man, they struggled. The weather was part of it. Go get Davante Adams. 100% easy.
I mean, I like the price. We should get him here at NFL Live. I think we could cover it. Look,
I think I can afford that.
When you're past the age of 30 as a wide receiver in the National Football League, it is routine that they start to diminish what your value is. And my advice to the GMs out there that need a number one receiver, do not trust the chart. Trust your eyes.
Yes.
Because if you look at the beginning part of this season, it is very clear that Davante Adams is still the same Davante Adams.
Hawk, put on
he
the
is
Ravens
such a
game.
technician that absolutely he has the kind of game that sustains over well beyond the typical time of a wide receiver in the National Football League.
One quick point of clarification. I'm not poking holes here, but the one difference with Odell Beckham Jr. was he was a free agent. He was cut, that whole thing. So it's a little different than what we're talking about here. I know. I'm just putting the
player
facts
acquisition.
out there.
I'm with you, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I like the Jets idea. I like the Commanders as well.
Sure.
You talk about a team that's trending forward, a veteran presence in the wide receiver room. Now, that conversation is going to revolve around what does Davante want his impact to be. Because if you go to the Washington Commanders, you're going to accentuate their number one wide receiver in Terry McLaurin, and you got to be willing to do that. Now, when I think about Davante, and you think about the career that he's had, he's absolutely going to want to go to a place that can win, right? To your point, the time is ticking down.
Sure.
The other thing is I want everybody to remember this Raiders situation and why we probably got here today. He went to Las Vegas for Derek Carr.
Correct.
And that's been the issue since they traded Derek Carr away. They've been in quarterback purgatory trying to figure out the direction of this organization.
Throw the Saints in the mix as well?
I would throw the Saints in absolutely. I would throw the Saints in the mix.
I got another
With
one
Clint
for you.
Kubiak for sure.
The Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, that was number
they
2 on my
will
list.
beat
That's a great
the
one.
Kansas City Chiefs if they get Davante. Adams. That will give them the firepower to climb Mount Patrick Mahomes with that. Because look, their running game over the last 2 weeks has probably been the best that we've seen. And that's saying something.
Yeah.
But when you look at them at the wide receiver position, Zay Flowers is a beast, and he's going to continue to be a beast. But he is still learning what it looks like as wide receiver one. Their number one receiver right now is Isaiah Likely, and number 2 is Hill, right? With Davante Adams, it forces single coverage, and you probably get more production out of Zay Flowers with Davante Adams on one side.
How many times we've been like, can the Ravens just get a true number one? This would be that. Graz, you have another team for us. Go ahead.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, this was a team that was incredibly active in the Brandon Ayuk trade market back when that was a thing during training camp. They are definitely, they start out 3-1. They like what they have at quarterback and Justin Fields right now. They like their young offensive line. They need more at wide receiver. I would not be surprised to see them in this mix. They are one of those teams, though, that unless they find some other way to make cap room, would have to wait till closer to the deadline to do it.
Yeah, there's 5 teams. I think the Jets are the clear team. I think the Jets can win a Super Bowl. I think this puts the Jets as the favorite in the AFC East if they get Davante Adams. Baltimore was the second team I thought. Pittsburgh. I like Washington and Dallas. Here's the thing that
you just threw Dallas in there kind of.
Yeah, I don't think any AFC West
right.
team, all you people saying the Chiefs, it's not going to happen. They're not going to trade him in the division.
In division.
I think the interesting thing with Jets, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, if you're those organizations, you're probably going to be a good football team this year. Your draft pick, if it's a second-round pick, is going to be somewhere in the 50s next year. You're going to tell me you won't give up the 50th pick for Davante Adams when you know
to go get a Lombardi.
When you know he puts you significantly closer to the trophy.
If I'm Davante, I'm going to Baltimore.
Go to Baltimore.
Like, if I'm him, I'm going to Baltimore.
Didn't years ago, wasn't that Anquan Bolden?
That was Anquan. But think about the history they have with veteran wide receivers. Steve Smith went there, OBJ, you talk about Anquan. But also, to your point, Hawk, like, if you at this point in your career, if you Davante, a Super Bowl is real.
But here's the pushback to that. If you're Davante, do you want to go to a team that you, or at least offense, believe is run-centric? Or do you want to go play with Aaron Rodgers?
Because that cover 2 don't work versus
You mentioned that if he went to the Commanders, he'd have to contend with the fact that Terry McLaurin is the number one wideout. What about Garrett Wilson?
No, Davante Adams is the number 1 wide receiver if he goes to the Jets.
No doubt. We have
number 1 wide receiver.
He's the number 1 guy if he go to Baltimore, too.
I think he's the number 1 guy if he goes anywhere, including the Commanders.
Like your point. Go watch the Ravens from 2 weeks ago.
On the field standpoint, I mean, McLaurin got his bag, so I'm thinking about the business element of it. But yeah, he's the number 1 guy wherever you go.
Yeah. If you're defending them, who are you putting the attention?
Quickly on the Cowboys, Stan threw that out.
They're not close enough.
Right.
They're not close enough, and he knows that. You got a coach that might not be there. You got a team that's gonna have to restructure.
I don't disagree with that. They need him though. I don't disagree with your point. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they need. Oh, for sure, they need him. But I think for him personally, they too far away, and there's too many unknowns for him to step into.
He's going to want some ownership in this. We'll keep an eye on it either way. That's really fun to think about. All right. Woo.
Baltimore.